You mentioned before lunch, probably the last few things you were saying just before lunch, about times when we had withheld our love. And that phrase came back to me in the meditation. And, well, I can see times, when I have withheld my love, and basically I don't want to withhold my love. Largely I don't. I mean, largely I've learned the lesson. But when I die, I don't want to die with a sort of reservoir of love that I haven't shared. So do you have any, what's the best tip to help me not withhold my love?
The best tip.
I'm dumbing down a bit there. Well, I'm really saying maybe you can shed some light on the topic.
That's the same thing. First of all, I have good news for you, or bad news, depending how you see it. If you're hoping to die, right, that's the tough thing to do, because it's impossible. So that's the first thing. So if you're thinking that there is a moment to coping out of this life ordeal and dive into the ocean of love, or die with all the love that you were not able to give, it's a very religious idea. So this is where I cannot help you. I'm not a priest. The tip here is no tip, because you cannot do anything about this until first there is a clear realization what love is. Withholding your love equals to withholding what you are in any given circumstances, in any of them. And the opposite of that is to meet everything from that place, is simply being who you are, no more, no less. There is no such thing as retribution. Karma is not retribution. The notion of karma cannot be understood in terms of how it is often interpreted and from the point of view of major religions. There is no such thing as a painstaking account of our actions where there are some kind of bookkeeping in heavenly department going on, where at an appropriate time we are being asked to pay the bills. It doesn't work like that at all. And I'm not wondering that the notion and the concept of karma is being denied by some of our time leading teachers. The leading teachers today, successful teachers, deny the notion of karma. A lot of things Indian denied because we still live, forgive me, I said it already, with an attitude of colonial yeah, with that colonial attitude when it comes to traditions, which we think we understand. We want clean Neo-Advaita. Neo-Advaita has nothing to do with Advaita Vedanta. It's a very Western, sanitized, castrated concept that fits consumer society of quick fixes. It's a deal making. It's not real philosophy. Sincerely cannot even be applicable. It will backfire, and it produces continuously half-baked teachers. But your question is not about that. So this understanding that karma is more like a river of currents, where everything is on the account of self-organizing power at work. It is that self-organizing power that is key to speak about karma, the key to understand. There is no need to have any kind of repository of what has been done on our part as an act. It's simply incomprehensible field of actions and reactions or responses. Every action creates ripples. These ripples in turn bounce off other, whatever that is, heavenly bodies or subtle bodies, and shimmering, incomprehensible field of these ripples, what creates karma. Infinite field of vibration. But within that infinite field of vibration, there is self-organizing power, where every reaction, as it were, on the account of its creating ripples. These are laws of nature, checked even by physics. The ripples will have to create the opposite waves. It's in the nature. The simple example, you throw a stone in a pond and the still water will ripple in all directions. Then it will reach the shores of the pond and it will ripple back to the place where the stone was thrown. Of course, this example is easy to comprehend, even visually. It's not like that in terms of continuously generating what throughout life with our actions, of all the actions that goes here. But what's impossible for the universe? What's impossible? Why can that be any difficulty? It's everything, the whole universe is a shimmering pool of sound. It's one humming ocean of sound. So karma, it's simply that. It's this continuous rippling, and that English proverb, as you sow, so shall you reap, is the very motto, or the way the karma is explained. There's no retribution. It's not punishment. It's not working from that level. So first I want you to relax completely about this, perhaps understanding that somehow on your deathbed, which is only can be spoken in relation to this transitory phenomena of being in the body, right? You know that very well anyway. Your soul cannot die because your soul was never born. So that is already taken care of. But again, if we are to accept the theory or concept of transmigration of the soul, then your soul can migrate from place to place from one realm of existence into another as many times as it needs to. So this is, you can already kind of check out of your list, you know. So there's no way to check yourself out of here in any way. This also, once that is understood, we simultaneously relax about this idea, but also it sobers us up. It has a different effect on us, actually. It has a different effect. Recognizing the immortality, even if for a split moment, has to bring something to our awareness. That this, what we might even at some point hope is going to end, has no end, because it has no beginning. Properly understood, it releases tremendous amount of energy. It frees that energy. Otherwise, that energy is compacted and contracted, and it's being released. On the other hand, if that is not misunderstood, and if it understood perversely, then somehow the daunting notion of, gosh, I'm going to be constantly in that existence mode, right? What a nightmare as well. I thought there is a repose, like, thanks God for those Abrahamic religions, you know. There is this moment when you prepare for, and then you're no longer in the body, and then whatever you did, the sum total of your deeds is being taken care of, you know, like hopefully you sobered up somewhere along the line, and hopefully you bent the cup of good deeds in favor of, right, rubbing shoulders with those who end up in a better climate in the afterlife. To which, as we know, when Albert Einstein asked about this whole thing of hell and heaven, his reply was, when it comes to climate, I prefer paradise, right? I would like to be in heaven. But if that's a matter of company, that I'm better off in hell. Whatever he meant by that, you know, it's for us to ponder. So, there's no such thing as at the moment of death. This is also part of your practice, part of the self-inquiry. You can prepare to die at some point. Yes, it's a kind of a good Christian idea. At the same time, the readiness to die have to be here and now, so that you really truly become that twice born. And also probed by understanding that the death of the body has no effect on your soul whatsoever. It's the bizarre thing to be suddenly staggered by that realization. That the fact that the elements will simply change their composition into something else, right? Because that's what the physical death is. The immortals will go into the sphere where the immortals dwell. And the mortals will go into the sphere where the mortals ought to go. The immortals here are the senses. The senses dwell in the body, but they cannot die. The sense of smell, the sense of touch, the sense of seeing, and so forth, doesn't belong to the body. It belongs to a much subtler realm, the realm which does not know death and decay. You see, you're already here realizing that you're living on a borrowed basis. The body is simply being used here, used Because it's equipped with organs of cognition. Differs from body to body, but more or less that's the case. Then what the mortals here are, what is spoken of as the mortals, is these organs of cognition. It's these lower seats of prana, lower dwelling of the prana. All this simply merges back with elementary order, of which the Mother Earth is so beautifully metabolizes in her belly, allegorically speaking, in the crust. So where is the death? Once this question was asked of me before by a very dear student at her own home when she held darshan in her house in Santa Cruz. It kind of prompted, I just felt like giving a completely different response to it. And I said that death is impossible even on two accounts. There's no death to the soul and there's no death to the body either. Because even the body as such does not die. You see? Nothing is in this body that dies. Nothing is flushed down. Even if you burn it, it still goes back and recomposes itself into this beautifully orchestrated ecology. This is spiritual ecology. It's ecosystem. Nothing is wasted, nothing dies here. Or if we want to use that term, that everything constantly dies because everything is constantly being reborn. There's no end to it. But going back to that withheld love, it's just very simple understanding, but it has to come from the place of what love is. Love is an ultimate surrender. And it takes completely arrested being not to know what that is. All of us know what that is to a certain degree and certain measure. Experiencing love is experiencing helplessness of surrender. That's what it is. Knowing love, it's that taste we already have of God. Each time, first love, any form of love, is to know ourselves, who we are. There's no other reason why we're here. There are teachings that only emphasize that the purpose of existence is to surrender to the power of love. And that power will annihilate us. Because the more we grow in that love, the growth here is not an acquisition. It's not growing in equity. It's becoming impoverished to a place of non-existence. If we are to borrow the language of the Sufis. This is the meaning of the fakir. In Sufi language there's a term fakir. It's extreme poverty, but not necessarily physical poverty. It's not the poverty of no currency. It's the realization that this essentially, what that power, that force of love is what undoes us. It's the act of undoing. And that recognition brings humility. That humility is poverty. You see? And the true riches are found through this poverty. It's a very complex dynamics. They are not superficial or somehow mood-making dynamics. These are real dynamics of that humility in the face of that realization. When we completely expand ourselves we find the true measure and the true status of really what we have in terms of who we are. So that fakir is that term. You know, there's a term dervish, for instance, right? Dervish, which is also pregnant with connotations, but so what about those times when that was withheld? And you posed your question as that recognition dawned, right? That there were moments when you withheld this.
Yes, way back. I mean, I feel much better about my ability to express love now. But I'm not setting an upper limit.
Good. Dawn. So
but I mean, it's one thing to express love to, well, nearest and dearest, and you know, in a certain environment. But I mean, there's no shortage of people out there that need love. You know, I could be kinder to people. I could be kinder to the supermarket checkout operator. You know, I could be kinder to the man in the garage. You know, sometimes I'm a bit. You know, I might be short-tempered or just. I suppose it's just about not being present in the moment, probably wrapped up in something else.
Yeah, very good. Very good. I'm not at all, of course, but I'm not a psychologist, and you know, it's not like a group where we gather to rehabilitate ourselves from some addictions. So if you feel like being kinder to the people on the checkout, then I cannot stop you, nor I can encourage you. It's absolutely immaterial to me whom you decided to be kinder to a snail on the ground or to the person on the checkout, you know, whatever. If you had spent time with Janie, you will no longer be able to walk through the grass like you just walk through, because they might be some living organisms. You'll have to then, not even nothing to do with what we talked last night. It's like literally you can't put your foot down because everything is filled with living organisms. Try to understand that this, what and how you want to be kind to the world doesn't belong to this darshan. Simply. I will give you a contrary example. This notion that saints, sages, or spiritually realized people always behave in a nice way is an invention. And there are examples, direct examples, where people were baffled by utter insensitivity of these adepts. Not in the face of checking out from the supermarket. There is an account when Anandamayi Ma was approached. You know who Anandamayi Ma is, she doesn't need introduction. By a wailing lady who apparently lost her son in a recent some cyclone of weather that happened, you know, like a few people drowned, and very normal, ordinary event in such populated country as India. And she was expressing herself excessively and kind of like forcing herself upon Anandamayi Ma, who simply remained in a very, very peaceful and detached state. After several attempts to demand the attention of the saint, unsuccessfully, she managed to kind of like create a lot of movement around. At which point Anandamayi Ma simply, with very, very little patience, asked some of her entourage to escort the lady out of the room. For those Westerners who witnessed that, this was a shock. completely unexpected, incomprehensible behavior. Why I'm giving this example is that we forget that the being for whom this whole ordeal is ended is in a state of perpetual spontaneity. And it's not acting out of what is required in the moment. Behaving like Roman in Rome, like Romans in Rome, no longer applies. Certainly not in her own ashram. Why I brought this example to you is that when you come from a spontaneity of your being, authentic place, then you will act in response to what situation demands. Who is to say that that response of Ananda Maya Ma was not a teaching in disguise, which was not even delivered consciously? You see?
Thank you.
So this is why, like, you know, how do you feel about your interactions in the world with your friends, acquaintances, family, is beside the point. Rather, get up and carry the whole world in your heart. That's the attitude.
Yeah.
Wherever you go as a world.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.